The United States makes the UN work when it wants it to work. And that is exactly the way it should be, because the only question for the United States is what's in our national interest.
Hey guys, it's Hake Fugitive here. And today we are going to discuss a very serious issue on YouTube that has been plaguing this platform for a very long time. And that is disinformation. Now, as all of you know, disinformation, misinformation, fake news, whatever you want to call it, has been a constant problem on the internet for a very long time now. And many don't seem to understand just how bad of a problem it really is, even though many don't want to think or even talk about it at all. They want to remain in their respective echo chambers and bubbles, wanting to hear information they want to hear rather than hearing what they need to hear. It literally comes in all shapes and sizes. And when it comes especially to the Russo-Ukrainian war, that is, disinformation is like a cancer that just won't go away no matter how much the situation may change. Like, you could apply a lot of chemo and radiation to get rid of the cancer, but it just keeps coming back. Now, if you've been following the war like I have been for the last 3 years, there's a big likelihood you've came across this channel, simply titled RFU, or Reporting from Ukraine. It has around 700,000 subscribers, puts out daily videos with well-made animated maps, gives frontline updates, supposedly, and puts General Valery Zaluzhny on the thumbnail of every single video. It wants to position itself as your go-to source for the truth on what's actually happening in both Russia and Ukraine. But what if I told you what this guy is doing is not necessarily reporting, but rather making stuff up outright, or exaggerating things that aren't really happening at all? I mean, when you look at his channel upon seeing it for the first time, you probably know what you're getting yourself into. Like, look at it. What does seeing this tell you about the channel? What does it tell you? But I digress. Let's get into the subject matter. Now, first of all, who exactly is Reporting from Ukraine? To summarize it, the channel was created a few years ago by some anonymous young creator likely living in the United States or some random European country, and claims to be Ukrainian, because how else would he be able to pump out content like this without sounding so stressed? And as you can tell, he's built up this empire, to say the least. He's raking in, obviously, thousands of dollars monthly through his Patreon and merch, and is doing very well in the YouTube algorithm. As you can see, his channel, which, as I mentioned earlier, has around 700k subscribers, and gets 100,000+ views per video. I mean, we gotta be honest with ourselves here. This is very impressive, considering that YouTube is a very difficult platform to make it on. And to give credit where credit is due, he knows exactly who his audience is, and he panders to them. He gives them what they want, and he profits in return. Sounds good, right? Well, no. Not for me personally, because I don't like guys who lie. A lot. And what exactly has he lied about, you may ask? Well, before I get into that, I'd like to mention that for a period of time, he was actually doing what he was supposed to do. And that was reporting, of course. Now, he wasn't perfect by any means, but when the moment came, he would usually deliver on what needed to be told, rather than putting out what his audience wanted to hear. Nowadays, however, he almost never mentions any good news for the Russians. Like, say, for example, the recent advances in Pokrovsk. Russia is obviously advancing there, as of today's video, and it appears that they are about to capture the entire city. But for some reason, he doesn't acknowledge this fact at all. Even Deep State UA, which of course is a very flawed map and source in its own right, is far ahead of him. Instead, he talks about how Russians are surrendering en masse, losing countless of vehicles and guys, and exaggerates small events within the country as if it were about to implode. I mean, what more do you want me to say? As all of you guys remember very well, the armed forces of Ukraine were looking to deliver the knockout blow to Russia in the summer of 2023. And a lot of people, including RFU, believed that Ukraine would be able to repeat the success it had during the previous year within the Kherson and Kharkiv regions. Video titles like Russians Run for Their Lives, Defense Collapses, or Ukrainian incapacitates the Russian army with one move would have you believing that Ukraine was about to win the whole thing against Russia. Like, quite easily. Well, things didn't go as planned. Instead, the 2023 Ukrainian counteroffensive ended with no significant changes on the map and would be, as of today's video, the last time that Ukraine would attempt a major counteroffensive on its own territory against Russia. And I am excluding Kursk because that was not within Ukraine. That was primarily within Russia. And also, as of this video, RFU has not acknowledged the failure of said counteroffensive. I literally cannot find anything from him that would hint at such a defeat. And when compared to 2023, 2024 was a complete disaster for Ukraine. They lost Avdiivka, Ugledar, Selidova, Krakove, and were encircled near the Velika Novosilka, which of course came as a result of the Ukrainians losing the only gains they made during that failed 2023 counteroffensive. Hell, the Russians even nearly breached Dnipropetrovsk region because of seizing Ugledar and Velika Novosilka. Now, while all of that was going on, RFU tried to sugarcoat the Russian pushes, or doesn't even acknowledge them at all. I am very serious when I say this. He literally had almost no response whatsoever to these advances. None. He either talked about irrelevant one-off events, attacks on Crimea, or the doomed to fail Kursk offensive. And speaking of which I mentioned earlier, what did he do when the armed forces of Ukraine lost the town of Suja, you may ask? Yep. As you expect, cricket noises. But look, we hit a pipeline and their bases at least. Now, fast forward to November 2025. The Russians are continuing to advance in the cities of Pokrovsk, Kupiansk, Liman, Volchansk, and Konstantinovka, and are, as of the recording of this video, also now nearing the town of Guleapol. In addition, the Russians have also taken over 300 square kilometers of Dnipropetrovsk region, which now eclipses what they have right now in Sumy region for comparison. So, at this point, RFU is running out of things to hype about. So, what's his pivot, you may ask? He decides to pump up some failed or non-existent attempts at separatism, portray oil refinery bombings as if they're game changers, and an economic collapse that's not coming anytime soon. This is a complete far cry from the territorial gains that the Ukrainians and their supporters were so used to gloating about back in late 2022. These videos scream Yakutia, Chechnya, Dagestan, Ingushetia want to leave Russia. Russian economy is crumbling in real time. Or incredible, Russia lost 15% oil refining capacity in one day. This guy really wants you to believe that these tiny irrelevant groups within the more Asian parts of Russia are going to somehow force a partition of the country. And that these drone strikes on refineries, in addition to more sanctions, are also going to bring about the end of Vladimir Putin. Like, really? That's just not how these things work. And according to mainstream outlets such as the Neoconservative Institute Study of War and the BBC, they basically pointed out that these are nothing burgers. And that these isolated sabotages or fires will have like next to no impact whatsoever on frontline logistics or the Russian operations in Ukraine. So yeah, it's nothing really to get excited about, unless of course it gets really bad, which I don't really see happening anytime soon. But anyway, while Russia grinds forward, like their slow capture of the city of Pokrovsk, as I mentioned earlier, he would sometimes try to spin it as a victory somehow. Or, if things are going really bad, he just ghosted completely, skipping Ukrainian losses and mobilization woes. And both the BBC and The Guardian reports show steady Russian gains. And even Deep State, the most compromised pro-Ukraine source there ever is, like as of today, because of the Ukrainian government's constant meddling with them, is even admitting Russian advances. But RFU, 90% wins and zero depth on the toll. And get this, he still features the fired General Zaluzhny's face on his video's thumbnails, over a year after his February 2024 dismissal. If that doesn't tell you how obsessive he is with that guy, I don't know what will. Is it because he's a symbol of Ukrainian resistance or something? Like supporting him as a political opposition figure to Zelensky? Who knows, to be honest. Now, with all of that being provided to all of you watching this video, I know that many of you are going to be thinking, why do you care about this so much? Why even make this video if you know for a fact that nothing will come out of it? Well, to put it simply, I could not stand by and do nothing while this guy, who frequently lies to his viewers for money, not only gets away with it, but isn't held accountable too for the disinformation that he and other people like him put out there. Rather, if they be himself, Denis Davidov, Jake Broe, the Russian dude, the Enforcer, Ukraine Matters, William Spaniel, Professor Gerdes, just to name a few. All of them, along with the ocean of AI slop and grifters alike, are creating an alternative reality that does not exist. A false reality that not only harms the well-being of its audience, but the information space around the war, and of course, the men and women who serve in the armed forces of Ukraine. So, what's going to happen in a matter of 1 to 3 years from now? Who knows? Maybe the Ukrainians will in fact win the war, and that making this video was completely pointless. They could be right all on, and I just make myself look very stupid in the process. But what if the opposite happens? That's what I really wonder about. How are these channels going to be able to explain to their subscribers and viewers alike on what's happening? Will they keep sugarcoating it? Will they stop making videos outright and bail with the money they made through Patreon and Google AdSense money? Will they just stop covering Ukraine altogether and move on to other endeavors? Or will they have to finally admit to their audience that they were wrong all on about everything they told them in the last few years or so about Russia? Now, truth be told, I would not want to be in their position if they're the ones wrong in the end. Oh no. But jokes aside, here's a little message for all of you. I get it. You all want Ukraine to win. I totally understand. And for Putin to be sent to The Hague for all he's done. But at the same time, you need to understand this. You are only setting yourselves up for heartbreak. Because what if Russia is the one that ends up winning the war? You're going to be confused, angry, pissed, bamboozled, you name it. All sorts of feelings will be in your head if this were to actually happen. And God forbid for you, especially, that it doesn't. But this content that you consume every day will eventually result in the erosion of trust, which of course also leads to fatigue and donations. And in a strange way, you'll be handing Vladimir Putin himself a victory when reality comes crashing down. So please, do yourselves a favor and avoid this content. You all deserve better. Stick to more reliable sources like AMK Mapping, Willy OAM, and hell, even the Institute for the Study of War and even Deep State are more reliable than this garbage. And listen, despite the ISW's obvious biases, which I can definitely acknowledge, they are at least more transparent and accurate when compared to these grifty channels. Like seriously, call this guy out, unsubscribe if you haven't already, and report him to YouTube for misinformation. This entire information space needs to be cleaned up, and hopefully, one day, you will all see nothing but the truth and only the truth, no matter how good or bad it may seem. Thanks for watching.